Well, hello and welcome everyone to the Creative Industries and Culture Masterclass. It's great to have so many brilliant people here. I'm Kully Thiarai and I'm Creative Director and CEO of Leeds 2023. I'm responsible for delivering a landmark year of culture here in Leeds in 2023. We've got a very tight agenda and an opportunity to hear from some brilliant people from India and here. So let me just say a little bit about the structure of the session and then we can get going. I will be acting as chair and leading us through the next couple of hours. My co-chair is Nicola Thompson, CEO of the Peace Hall in Halifax, and she'll be helping me and keeping an eye out for your questions as the session progresses. We've broken the session into two parts. So after the initial introductions from our key partners, we'll have about 50 minutes or so, during which I'll ask the first group of panelists to present. This will be followed by an opportunity to ask a few questions. And please do add them to the chat along with any thoughts you might have for what you'd like to see happen next, because sadly, the time is very tight and we might not get through to all of your questions in any detail. So I'll then introduce our second group of panelists. And again, I hope we will have some scope for a few questions at the end of that session. So can I just remind all panelists to keep to time? We've got up to 5 minutes for you to speak and let us know a bit about your work, and if it goes much longer, then I will politely invite you to stop, because we're going to not be able to hear from everybody. So before inviting presentations from our panelists, can I just invite Professor Lisa Stansbie to say a few words as one of the partners involved in making this event happen. Lisa Stansbie, Dean of the Leeds School of Arts at Leeds Beckett University. Over to you, Lisa.
Thank you for that. As I've just been introduced, my name's Professor Lisa Stansbie and I'm Dean of the Leeds School of Arts. I'm just going to give you a bit of an overview of what we do at the Leeds School of Arts. So we've got a really long-standing history of creative education, over 170 years, dating back to 1846. We've got a reputation for pioneering groundbreaking creative and cultural practice, some of which has actually shaped the way higher education in art and design in the UK is taught. My school's a big school of creative practice at Leeds Beckett. We've got 3,300 students, 43 courses in subject areas spanning architecture, art and design, film, creative technologies, fashion, music and performing arts. The school is also home to around 250 staff. We've got many prestigious alumni, including Ricky Wilson from the Kaiser Chiefs, Mark Ullman from Soft Cell, Mobo nominated singers, the performance artist Rose English, John Dowat, director of a number of television dramas for Channel 4 and BBC, and Fabian Vega, Emmy-nominated cinematographer from our Northern Film School. Our current staff are all practicing researchers in their field, and they include award-winning curators such as Peter Lewis and internationally renowned fashion designer Matty Boven. We are also home to the New Technology Institute. So the NTI, which sits within the school, is a hub of excellence for computing, creative technology and digital practices. It provides cutting-edge training and services to businesses in the region and further afield. In architecture, we also run a live architectural practice called Project Office, which is a design and research collaboration involving our staff and students. Their ethos is to make ethical, social and resilient architecture in Yorkshire and further afield. So Project Office actually offers a full architectural service, and we've done a number of buildings in the region. There's been some really major excitement in the last week for my school. So we've just completed the Leeds School of Arts building. This is an £85 million state-of-the-art building with leading industry standard facilities for film, music, fashion and performing arts. And this is set in the heart of Leeds. The building has got a wealth of outstanding specialist facilities. I'm actually not going to read them all out because it's actually a really long list. But I'm going to tell you some of the key ones. So we've got studios for fashion, music and dance and performing arts. Some of the key facilities include a 184-seat performance theatre, a 220-seat Dolby Atmos movie cinema, and we've got state-of-the-art TV and film studios, including black box studios, Foley rooms, dubbing and music recording studios, and a host of post-production suites. This landmark building will be a hub for us and hopefully enable creative exchange and to build further partnerships, much focused on public-facing events and hopefully industry courses as well. Finally, I'm going to mention the Leeds Beckett University Enterprise team because they enable a lot of our collaboration. So they work with the school in recognising the benefit that our creative activities and facilities can offer. They connect SMEs to creative talent within the school and our academic expertise and research. So really our ethos as Leeds School of Arts is expanding our outward-facing activities. Obviously our fantastic new building allows this, and to develop further agreements, community research projects, live student briefs, volunteering placements and industry events. We see ourselves as a leader in arts and cultural education and research, and we really hope, especially with the new building, that our facilities and expertise can be regarded as a force for social good in Yorkshire, the region and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa, and so great to hear all the range of stuff that's happening in Leeds. Now, may I introduce Dr. Param Shah from the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry.
Thank you so much. Greetings of the day to everyone who is joined here. I'm Param Shah. I represent the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry here in the UK. We have some of our eminent members who joined in today for the panels as well. The FICCI is one of the largest and the oldest apex chamber of commerce in India. We were established in 1927, and our history is closely interwoven with India's independence struggle, its industrialization, and its emergence as one of the most rapidly growing global economies. We are a non-government, not-for-profit organization. We are the voice of industries, voice of the Indian industry and businesses. From influencing policies to encouraging debates to engaging with policymakers and civil society, FICCI articulates the views and concerns of the industry. We represent over 250,000 members across the length and breadth of the country, as well as represent them through our international offices like the one that I represent here in the UK. Media and entertainment and creative industries is one of the leading sectors handled by FICCI, and working with leading stakeholders like industry players, central and state governments, regulating agencies and various sectoral associations, not only in India, but also in other parts of the world is what we engage in. We work very closely with the government, regulators, industry stakeholders, and various policy issues for an orderly growth of the industry in India. In this direction, FICCI is also, reputedly known for organizing FICCI Frames, a global event in the field of media entertainment with participants from over 2,500 participants from all over the world for the last 22 years. The 22nd edition is going to be announced very soon, and we hope that we would be able to have participants from all the world traveling to India post the pandemic. We all hope to see through. Along with the frames, we also organize the FICCI Best Animated Frames award that recognizes entries from across the globe in the field of animation, visual effects, gaming, etc. UK has been a regular participant at the frames. We've been also working with the global film festivals like Cannes, Venice, Rome, Mypron, and beyond. We also work very closely on the skill development program in media and entertainment sectors as well, and we have a media and entertainment skills council that helps boost skill development in the segment, standardization of skills and training and trainers almost a decade back. A very important note for a lot of people who have joined from the UK is FICCI was instrumental in providing the industry status for the film industry in India in the year 2000. We are very closely working with the government of India and we were instrumental in helping them set up the National Center for Excellence for Animation, Visual Effects, Gamings, for education and research in the sector. I believe, and we as an organization believe, that there is a lot of potential for the growth of the sector by collaborations between India and the UK. There are a lot of areas for media mergers and acquisition, as well as joint working between the two countries. The UK and India signed a co-production agreement in films in 2008. UK has been one of the most favorite shooting locations for Indian films as well. So on both the sides, take benefit from this treaty going forward. Probably the North, that is being represented here largely, is an area that is the choicest destination for film producers, as well as a lot of VFX, gaming and animation companies that work closely with the industry and businesses up there. We also are aware that there are a lot of areas that we can work together with, and I'm not going to go on and on because we have members who are present here who would be able to share more about it. And I'm sure that the discussions that would happen today would help us strengthen the business relationship between India and UK. And on behalf of FICCI, huge welcome virtually to India. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Param Shah. And again, reiterating that this is a first step in lots of partnerships here. So we very much hope that those conversations can kickstart a deeper connection between India and the UK, and particularly the North. And following on from the film context, we're going to now, without further ado, kick off our panel contributions. And our first panellist, Sally Joynson, is Chief Executive of Screen Yorkshire. Sally.
Good morning, everybody. It's really lovely to see everybody. So in 5 minutes, I will try and do a potted history of Screen Yorkshire. Screen Yorkshire is the lead body for screen activity in Yorkshire. We work predominantly in film and television, but we also have a very close relationship with the games industry. We set up an organisation called Game Republic, so we retain an active relationship with the gaming industry, but the majority of our work is in film and television. We have been in business for very nearly 20 years. We are a specialist organisation. All my team come from the industry. So the team covers location scouts, location managers, production managers, producers, TV executives. So the aim is that you have an organisation that is highly expert, highly specialist, can deal with pretty much anything that you throw at it in relation to film and television. In the first 10 years of our lives, our roots were in something called the Regional Screen Agency Network, set up by the old UK Film Council, which may be familiar to some of you. During our years as an RSA, we actually worked quite extensively with India. I came out to the first Goa Film Festival, 2 trips to Mumbai, to Chennai, and of course during those years we also hosted the IFA Awards, which was absolutely unforgettable. First 10 years as a regional screen agency, developing and supporting the film and TV industry in Yorkshire, and with some success. In 2010, the UK had a big change in policy. A new government brought new ideas in, and the network of regional screen agencies, of which we were a part, closed. And all the screen agencies were expected to go quietly into the mists, never to be seen again. But Screen Yorkshire had other ideas. And we were very concerned about what would happen to the Yorkshire screen industries if we weren't there. So we decided to stay in business. And having lost virtually all my staff, all my funding, all my contracts, and all my funders, nevertheless, 1 year later, I relaunched the company as a commercial content investor. So we began to part finance production on a commercial basis. We finance on the basis of those projects which have international sales appeal. So you would expect a domestic market, but you're looking for productions that can sell on the international forum. And that's where we will get a recoupment on our funds. We invest, the money comes back, and then we reinvest. When we launched that new fund, within 14 months of having done so, the fund had been nominated as one of the 10 most influential film funds in Europe. Its first investment was into a small drama for BBC Two that was really struggling to get its financing together and was in danger of not happening at all. So we put some money in, we brought that production to Yorkshire, and that production was called Peaky Blinders. That was our first investment. And then off the back of that, we have since done about another 55 productions. And the majority of those would either not have happened at all or would not have happened in Yorkshire had it not been for Screen Yorkshire's intervention or investment in those projects. 55 productions, part financed by Screen Yorkshire. And that's to say everything from Peaky Blinders through to most recently All Creatures Great and Small, to things like The Duke, which will come out later this year with Helen Mirren in it. Really, really big productions. Now, this content fund was absolutely critical over the next 10-year period. Those were very lean years in the UK economy. There was no money around for financing film and TV, and yet Yorkshire had a £15 million fund. So we had a slate of activity here. And during that period, you saw the screen industries grow faster in Yorkshire than anywhere else in the UK, and that includes London and the South East. We had employment up by 88%, company turnover up by 247%, and that's against a national average of 118%. So this fund was absolutely instrumental in keeping Yorkshire's screen industries alive during some really lean years, the years where before tax credits, particularly on high-end TV. So we relaunched the company as a commercial content investor, and we were doing that very, very successfully for a number of years. And most recently, we have diversified our activity again. So more akin to our roots as the regional screen agency, we still continue that investment fund. We invest around £2 million a year in commercial content. We still have an interest in a studio out at Church Fenton, currently home to Gentleman Jack, and we have a very growing skills development package. We run projects which are aimed at getting people from more diverse backgrounds into the industry. We run a forum of all the universities in the region called Connected Campus that brings those universities absolutely directly into contact with industry. We've just expanded that to take in the further education college sector. We also have a national producer development programme that we run on behalf of the British Film Institute, and we are about to launch a new talent development project, a 2-year programme for developing talent across platform agnostic, talent that can work, can develop stories for a raft of platforms, and that will launch later this year. So we do very traditional stuff, but we also work extensively now in interactive and immersive storytelling in a project in partnership with a number of universities. But expert specialists, lead agency for film and TV in Yorkshire, and hopefully expert specialist and very welcoming. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sally. That's a really rich range of insights and opportunities there. Thank you. Anand, would you like to go next? Anand is Chief Executive and Artistic Director of Dance City. Anand, over to you. Welcome.
Thank you, everyone. It's great to be here. I am Anand Bhatt. I am a brown man with a bald head, glasses, wearing a green jumper. and my pronouns are he and him. I don't think my CV can compare to any of my fellow panel members today, but I'll give it a shot. When I was growing up, I thought I was going to grow up to be someone like Govinda or Mithun Chakrabarti because I loved to dance. Thankfully for you, you wouldn't pay to watch me dance. I was a bit rubbish. I was all right at your auntie's wedding, but that's about as far as I could go. Luckily, I did happen to meet a good dancer. As they say, you know, those who can teach. I ended up as a Bollywood dance teacher in Leicester in 2002, helping out at the local Leicester Mela. And that was my first foray, because obviously my kind of days of impersonating Michael Jackson and doing classical Indian dance of Kathak led me nicely after a psychology degree to teaching Bollywood dance. So all of that jumbled nature got me into a place where I became hooked on the opportunities. And I arrived in Leicester at probably what I call the right time, because when I was delivering those dance classes, no one in Leicester at the time was doing any. And so I carried on for a few years, met a guy called Akash Odedra, who, again, luckily for you, is someone that you pay to watch to dance. And he, in what I would say now, is probably the most virtuoso Kathak performer in the world today. So, you know, him being Birmingham born, Leicester based, and being Leicester based, we randomly started a dance company together. And a certain choreographer based in London called Akram Khan had invited him to perform at the Sapnagata Festival at Sadler's Wells. And all of a sudden, someone like me, who was working in a blind charity by day as their fundraiser, by night, I was moonlighting as a Bollywood dance teacher, was suddenly producing a show at Sadler's Wells with Akash Odedra. And I didn't know what I was doing, but we put it on and people liked it, so that was good. And Akram kind of sat down and said to us, "I'd like to make a show on you guys." And I said, "That's all well and good, Akram, but you making a 10-minute piece of work doesn't get me an evening of work." And he introduced us to two other choreographers called Sidi Larbi and Russell Malifant, who, if you're not in the dance world, is basically are kind of Tom Hanks and Brad Pitt of the kind of dance world. And it started a journey for us in 2011 with Akash, launched a show called Rising, which ended up winning awards in Italy, Serbia, the Czech Republic, Canada, USA. And that journey took us to 40 countries with our works over the last decade. And we landed gigs on the TED Global Conference in Brazil, and so on and so forth. It was a bit of a roller coaster, kind of having to teach 3-year-olds to dance and kind of mopping up their wee when they got a bit excited. It was a kind of 180-degree turn in the way that we were delivering it. Akash's alma mater was Shamak Davar. Shamak is the choreographer for the films Dhoom 2, Bunty or Bubbly, Dar Is Zameen Par, and many more. And what became apparent is that whilst I was touring with Akash, I was not present anymore in Leicester. I wasn't able to offer the same commitment to teaching in the way that I once did. So we had a conversation with Shamak and said, "Look, why don't you start your school here and we'll shut ours down and make space for you." Luckily for us, they said, "Yeah, all right, let's give it a shot." At the beginning, they started to send a teacher from India, and we would employ somebody on a kind of a tier 5 visa and have them perform and go around Leicester and Oadby teaching dance. And just before I left for my job at Dance City, and just before the pandemic, that relationship had grown where 4 full-time teachers from India were working with us in the UK, doing classes from Manchester to Dartford with 1,000 people a week. And the reference to IFA was quite a warm one, because what we'd managed to do in that time is also have 30 people from the UK trained to go and teach, to perform on stage at the IFAs in Madrid in 2016 with the Shamak company from India. Shamak was also the choreographer of the 2006 IFA Award in Yorkshire. There was an incredible journey for us, and what we've started to explore as an organisation, and I continue to work with Akash on this, and what I will continue to do at Dance City, is look at what the opportunities are to have licensing agreements and IP agreements with Indian-based production companies, because there are opportunities in the UK. India has one of the largest diasporas in the world, if not the largest diaspora, and including second and third generation, it's probably even bigger. And there's a big market. Disco Dancer by Mithun Chakrabarti was the biggest film in Russia, beating any Russian film at that time, which I think is an incredible testament to how Indian film travels all across the world. And the kind of the tax credits, the infrastructure and the expertise that we have in the UK bode well for developing new kinds of live stage and theatre projects that India's infrastructure at the minute could do with exploiting. And I think we're open for business, and I'm very interested in kind of exploring any of those opportunities as we go forward. And that's me. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Anand. A great story around serendipity and moments of connection that can lead to all sorts of things. So we're going to now move on to Munjal Shroff, Director and COO of Graphiti Studio. Munjal.
Thanks, Kully, and pleasure to be here. Quick background about me. So I'm basically a creative producer, director, and content creator. Over the years, I've produced shows, and currently also working on a couple of interesting shows. So my studio, Graphiti, was co-founded with Mr. Ram Mohan, who is more affectionately known as the father of Indian animation. He is no more with us, but he was awarded one of the highest honors in the field, Padma Shri, for his outstanding contribution to the field of animation. So Graphiti as a studio has been in this space for over 25 years, and we started out with as a small advertising production company, mainly doing TV commercials. And since then, we've grown rapidly. And over the years now, we have partnered with companies like Cartoon Network, Disney, Nickelodeon, and now Netflix. So we have shows currently on these platforms. One of our more popular properties is called a very unique show called Crayfish and Balti Boy, where we revive the lost folk arts of India and use them to tell folk stories using folk music. And that show has over 40 million kids watching it in India, and was also released worldwide on Netflix in Turkish, Polish, Chinese, and Korean. We've also partnered with Disney, and they've licensed our shows Yom, which is based on a boy who has superpowers from yoga, and that's also doing well. Has about 16 million kids watching it, and was also released globally on Netflix in Turkish, Polish, Chinese, and Korean, apart from obviously English and Hindi. And we continue to create new shows and new IPs. And we've also had a very interesting history of working with producers and creators in the UK. We started doing this almost 10 years back with the Hit Entertainment, which is they optioned one of our shows that was created by us, and we developed it with them. And now we are working with Mattel Toys, Mattel UK. We've basically worked on co-developing a show with them, and it's been greenlit by one of the major OTT platforms, and hopefully it'll come on the platform next year. So I think as Graphiti as a studio, I think we constantly are looking at companies with whom we can partner. On one side, obviously offering our services, but also to work and creative partnerships to create original content. And that's something that I'm constantly seeking for. We're also looking at distribution partners in the UK to see how we can constantly work with new partners, new minds, and also, I would also like to kind of touch upon my role, the industry role. I serve as the co-chairman of animation, visual effects, and gaming industry, which is under FICCI, the body. And I also serve as a board member of Media and Entertainment Skill Council. And we are currently working on the National Animation, Visual Effects, and Gaming Policy, with a vision to, eventually touch about $60 billion over the next 10 years and ensure that the current workforce scales up to over 2 million trained animation, visual effects, and gaming artists. It's a tall ask, I think, but that's the task that me, Akshat, who's also you're going to be hearing from next, and some of the others have been focusedly working on this and hoping that UK can be an integral partner with us, and I think there's some work there. We already have the co-production treaty in place, and we are now trying to see how we can leverage that better. So very excited to be on this panel and looking forward to engaging and sharing more. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Munjal. And Moving swiftly on, Richard Flint, can I introduce you and ask you to say a few words?
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to see you all this afternoon. Being included in the creative section, but perhaps, as I go on to say, perhaps it is justified in some ways. I spent most of the last 15 years or so working as the chief exec of Sky Bet, which was a division of Sky Television, but has been a separate company for around the last 7 or 8 years until becoming part of the Flutter Entertainment PLC group. We are a Leeds-based major employer, 100 people in the team, and I think we can, perhaps immodestly say that as a company we've been pioneering in the betting entertainment in the UK, and in many ways the UK is leading the world and has led the world in terms of this industry, which hence it's also a somewhat controversial industry that we offer is a betting, a gambling product. But we always thought about that in a different way, largely because we came out of a media company of Sky Television. Sky is a major sports broadcaster here in the UK, owning the rights to all of the football, most of the cricket, well, so not all of the football, a substantial part of the football and a substantial part of the cricket that we broadcast in the UK. And my division, Sky Bet, was set up as a way of adding some interest, some excitement, and also obviously as a revenue generating opportunity for Sky Television. Betting on the game to deepen our customer relationship with our viewers and our subscribers by allowing them to bet with Sky Bet as well. We were based in Leeds, really. Leeds has a rich sports history and also a rich technology history. The internet service provider was here in the late 90s, and actually a lot of the staff that work at Sky Bet are technology staff, and a lot of the early people in our company came from those other tech businesses like FreeServe. Our initial focus as a company back in the early 2000s was around placing bets through the Rathee TV remote control that was a Sky product, and we integrated with that to offer betting via interactive TV. As time went on, it became clear that actually people wanted to bet on their laptops, and really in the last 5 years or so, most betting has shifted to mobile phones. They're ubiquitous, they're private. People can bet in front of the TV on their mobiles, or obviously if they're at the game, they can bet on their mobiles as well. And another, alongside the sort of technology trend the business forward in the last 10 or 15 years, obviously the legal situation in the early 90s, it was an industry where the regulations were grey. As a major media company, we could only operate in a highly, in a regulated, clear and legal fashion. The UK market became licensed in 2005, and it was clear what we would do. And at the moment, the government's actually reviewing the licensing arrangement for the company. But really looking broader and around the world, particularly and notably in India, the regulations around betting are very grey, and there are a lot of companies operating in that grey zone. Obviously, they're private companies. Similarly, that's true in many other countries around the world. The US has recently implemented a state-by-state licensing regime. Personally, I think that's the way to go, and I'd love to see India roll out in that direction, at least so there's clarity where people can operate in either. It's clear what's legal and what isn't. And personally, I think it's better to offer licensed gaming where the governments can regulate and tax it. We always focused on mass market betting as a form of entertainment. We don't offer a large amount to intervene and limits for them and potentially, close their account if we feel they are betting in an uncontrolled way. Back to the sort of link with the creative industries, there have been quite a few innovations that really drove our success, and now we're part of entertainment. Those innovations are being rolled out around the world and driving a lot of success in the US. These include a product called the result of 6 Premier League games Saturday afternoon, and what we call Request a Bet, but it's called elsewhere around the world same game multis, where essentially you can predict the increase, so you can get a higher payout if you predict all of those results correctly, and that's driving a lot of success of FanDuel in the US. We've gone from around 100 to 1,700 employees, and starting the company, we were on around £25 million in revenue a year. the results that we announced today is very close to £1 billion a year in revenue. So, rapidly growing. And that's just the UK part. We're now part of a bigger group, which is 4 or 5 times that size. There's very international leaders in the US take active interest in markets like India, where you've got the daily fantasy sports companies growing like Dream 11, and I know Rummy's obviously a popular game. As I say, we're hoping that industry more easily. Our main sports are football and horse racing here in the UK. There's quite a lot of interest in the Indian Premier League, which is obviously a fantastic spectacle and a great way and a great sport for people to get involved with from a betting point of view. So that's a sort of an overview of the journey we've been on, the growth we've had as a company. We're proud to be in Leeds, and we wouldn't have been the company that we've become if it wasn't for the strong lead tech community, the high and really Leeds' focus on being outward. Any questions in a moment? Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. I'm sorry, it sounds like we've had a little bit of difficulty with some of your sound at times, but I hope everyone managed to catch everything you said. So we're going to move forward now to Akshat Rathee, who's founder and managing director of Nodwin Gaming. Akshat, over to you.
Thank you very much. We've all taken a lot of time, so I'll keep this simple. I do something fairly wacky in the space of digital entertainment. I do something called esports, and some of you might have heard of it, some of you have not. But for the ones that are absolutely uninitiated to this, I make a lot of money getting people to watch other people play video games, and that is a thing, and it's becoming fairly big. So we have a lot of influencers. We are one of the. We started in India 5 years ago. We are fairly well funded. Our parent company is actually going public in an IPO in about a month. It'll be the first Indian company to go public with that. And we happen to be the largest component to that business. And what we do is we have bases. We started off in India, but now we are across South Asia, in Bangladesh, in Pakistan, in Sri Lanka, in Nepal. But we also have offices in other emerging markets that are mobile-led, for example, Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, and the Middle East. We run leagues, we run tournaments. So we do things like the English Premier League equivalent for esports. We have 11 IPs where multiple games, everything from things like Counter-Strike and Dota 2 and Valorant, which are the mainstay games, but games also like FIFA, where we work with the federations. As the equivalent is, we'll work with the UK FA for football, or we'll work with the EPL. In India, it's called the ISL. And we'll work with them to go ahead and build out our products. And we're working constantly to go ahead and see how we can go ahead and engage people. Our revenue predominantly comes in from media rights. So we sell sports media rights and sponsorships. And our divisions are fairly simple, right? We have influencers, we have talent, we have IPs, we have tournaments. And we help build these games out fairly big, very, very quickly in our key markets. We are valued a lot because we cater to what is called the advertising dark market, which is the 16 to 24-year-old male predominantly. And we have about 20% female representation in our viewership, but predominantly still a male-led system comes with issues related to that. And this is what we do. What we'd love to go ahead and see is we've traditionally been a live broadcast company, right? So 80% of our content actually comes in from things that are live. Think of a football match, which is there. But as the ecosystem's becoming bigger and bigger, or a cricket match, let's not talk about the cricket match between India and England. We just give it up. And the idea is, how can we build shoulder content that is great? What are the kind of opportunities we can sit together and see, which is the lifestyle content, the influencer content, because young kids, young males are not just gamers, right? They're also boyfriends, and they're also consuming deodorants, and then they're going and wearing shirts, and their lifestyle and their music, and they like comedy. And how can we go ahead and build this ecosystem that is around the core part of the gamer persona that is not live? And that to us is the wonderful opportunity we'd love to go ahead and I just love to go ahead and put on the table. I try to keep this in 5 minutes just to go ahead and keep things moving, but that's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Akshat. And short and sweet is really just great as well, so no worries. Raman Kalra is partner of PricewaterhouseCoopers in India. I'm going to hand over to you, Raman.
Thanks, Kully. An absolute pleasure to be in this group over here. You know, the topic is always very close to our heart. As a quick line of introduction, I lead our advisory practice for entertainment, media, and sports for PwC in India, and also something as we call as a CMO marketing advisory practice, where we work pretty much across the sectors. And I'm glad, you know, I'm pitching in after Akshat. Akshat, you know, the great work that Nodwin and you guys have been doing. So esports is, of course, is the new kid on the block, but very fast growing kid on the block, and they're going to change a lot of things sooner than people can really sit down and imagine about it. So we work with governments, we work with the private sector. We have helped a lot of governments, state governments in India on integrated media and sports policies, on trying to put together some of the aspects which India had been lacking historically. Just to give an example, you know, if I pick sports as a subject here, we do have a lot of infrastructure. It's not good enough. It's still not sufficient enough. But most of that sports infrastructure is lying idle and getting wasted. You know, besides hosting a few tournaments, you know, a few days or a few months in a year, there is not much that happens. So there is a whole new drive on how do you really make sports infrastructure financially viable. And we had a session with a lot of people coming in from UK about a year and a half back in Mumbai, on talking the same thing on how do we really collaborate, work together, and make the sports investments more financially viable. So we work with government in that space. We work with people in the private businesses. There is a lot of interest that we have seen over the last 2-3 years from the leagues and the clubs in both in different parts of UK and as well as US and other parts, to really see how do we really come and what should be our India market entry strategy. There are clubs in UK who have tried to come to India through the route of acquiring a club in India. There are clubs and leagues who have tried to come to India by launching an academy at the grassroots level. Then they felt that is a good way of growing. As we speak, for example, MLB is trying to double down in India. NBA did a lot of work over the last few years, and they are trying to grow in India. So there is a lot of interest from businesses across UK to see how do we really be a part of 1.3 billion consumers sitting in India. And as I always say that, and the power that we really sit on is the consumer base. So on one side, while such a population could be, you know, a challenge, but to have such a population is as much of consumer demand also. So, you know, once people max out on capacity in different parts, they really look at India. So that is one. We work very closely with, as a firm, we of course bring together the aspects of strategy, consulting, tax and regulatory, and the public policy matters. So I heard somebody talking, you know, I'm missing the name, but the gentleman, you know, a little before when we were talking about the betting industry, and I think it was Richard when we were talking about the betting in this industry. So there is a lot being debated, being spoken in India on what part of fancy sports or what part of betting industry could get legalized and in what form. So one state in India, which is in southern part of the country, Karnataka, was contemplating having an outright ban on anything to do with esports because it associated itself with, let's say, a part of, you know, the online betting and gaming kind of a thing. So of course there is a lot yet to be done, and we are working very closely with the governments on the space of what could be a good regulatory environment, you know, what could be a good controlled regulatory environment which doesn't kill the creativity. And I think it's a topic which has been on top of minds for a lot of people in the media space in India, you know, over the last few months, including the most recent one, which is on the censorship on the content that comes in OTT, vis-a-vis, you know, a few other debates that happened in the past. So the whole, the crossroads of self-regulation, controlled regulation, we try to be an equivalent voice in that space. And I admit, I think whatever we do in this space, there is a lot more yet needs to be done. So I think if any of your businesses in UK are trying to see or they think about it, that is India a market to go? Will I get into a crossroads of a legal battle, a year down the line, or the government might suddenly bring out with the regulation which makes my business as completely unviable. We are here to offer help on putting those dots and those pieces together. I think that's extremely important. We also have been in parallel engaging with, now once you take a decision that okay, you want to be a part of Indian ecosystem from a creative perspective, we are working closely with a lot of businesses, small, large, both at the same time on what should be our content strategy. Where we heard about dance in this session, we heard about animation, and a lot of regards for Munjal. They're among the leaders in that space. We heard about esports. There are different segments of the creativity that kind of kicks in. But what really becomes important is that what should be, if somebody wants to be a part of Indian ecosystem, what should be your content strategy? How much of market is out there open for you? So helping build the right kind of cohorts or helping do a right kind of demand assessment, so that it kind of feeds into your strategy on content creation, and not only content creation by yourself, also with the right kind of ecosystem. There is a deep tech play which is coming up. So we as a firm, we have a very strong tech practice on helping companies on content creation strategies. But trying to understand your consumer behavior far more better, and in a way trying to bring the left brain and the right brain coming together. A lot of people in this panel right now also, if I ask a question, some might say that nothing, in the business of creativity, gut is all that matters. We prefer to go by our gut and by our instinct. While there'll be some people who will say that we are very, very data-driven organization. So we're gonna try to bring a right kind of balance between the two. Get your right brain and left brain come together, and see how do we really therefore make a more calculated, future-proof business strategies, for growth. That's what we do with all our businesses in that space. So I think as you said, we kind of cut across strategy, growth strategy, technology, a lot of digital. We have a digital firm within our firm itself. Nobody would have thought a few years back that the likes of PwC or some of the other allies like us, like maybe Deloitte of the world or PwC, nobody would have thought a few years back that we will be standing in Cannes and not just standing in Cannes, but also picking up the awards. Nobody would have thought us to be in that creative space. But I think the role of creativity and data and things are coming together so well that we have a bunch of ethnographers, for example, who help brands across sectors really wear the shoes of consumers by shadowing them for days and days and understanding that what really sells and what really doesn't sell. So as you say that if you really want to be a lion, if you want to understand a lion, you can't see it on a Discovery TV. You got to go out to the jungle and see it face to face. So that's what we kind of do through our ethnographic research, team sitting in house. So I think those pieces of the puzzle come together. We also heard at the beginning of the session, quite a few people talking about the co-production treaties. In last, almost every other month, I get a request that how do we make use of it? So there is apparently still a lot of confusion in the minds that while there are co-production treaties, how do we exercise it? What needs to be done and what do we get out of it? So we are trying to bring some clarity. If somebody really wants to walk that path, we are more than happy to handhold. We're more than happy to clarify some of those aspects and help things move forward. So I think all in all, long story short, it's an apt time. I think the timing is very good. I would love to thank Sharon, Rupinder, and everybody behind setting this up, because the world is coming out of COVID. There is so much of pent up demand. There's so much of revenge consumption that is going to happen in almost everything and anything that people would want to jump on it. And if we can collaborate better, if any of the businesses in Yorkshire.
Thank you very much, Raman.
Yeah.
And that raises lots of interesting questions around ethics, around regulation, around censorship, and of course, our approach to content strategy generally. We've got a couple of questions coming forward. So I'm going to just ask, technology has obviously driven innovation in the creative and cultural sector in recent years. Do you foresee any new disruptive technology coming to impact on them, either positive or negative? Raman, you want to just pick that up very quickly, and maybe Anand, you could talk about it in the context of creativity as well.
Yeah, but very quickly, if I have to answer on that, technology will play a significant role in many areas. One, on the decisions on content creation strategies, which we already spoke about. Second, there is a bigger technology play in automatic content creation, and people are, and it is happening in the world now. A lot of content. The trailers, for example, if you create a movie, what should be the trailer look like? The trailers can be automated by technology. You don't have to do any thinking behind that. It will understand whom it is going to. It will curate a trailer automatically and shoot it out. So that people love that trailer. And there's a lot of immersive play that will happen in technology. We have had shows on Netflix on immersive on collaboration that will continue to grow. So I think there are multiple aspects where technology will become more and more important. I think people like Munjal will speak so much on this, on the VFX, the tech that the role that tech is playing in the whole VFX business.
Thank you. Anand, do you want to pick up from your perspective?
I think technology is playing a crucial role in how cross-border collaboration can happen in the fight with the climate crisis. And I think it's going to play an ever essential role in the need for us to have cross-border collaboration whilst keeping our carbon emissions very low. And the other thing, which I find very interesting as someone who works in the live space, now running a theatre, technology is providing new ways that audiences can engage with content that is beyond geographic reach. And so audiences now could sit in Latin America or Australasia watching a show that is being performed live in Newcastle, creating new fans. People who may never come to my doorstep by virtue of geography are becoming audiences. And of course, as it's just been said by Raman, how it's being used in creation. I'm also interested in how, in a real life example, I might be able to use technology in a creative process where I don't have to call, again, this is going back to the climate change thing, but I can now see detail on a set design being designed in India that I don't have to physically see in England, and see if I can make approvals from England, saving a little bit of carbon footprint. So I think it's also going to assist creative processes where you can invite talent to your process that was beyond reach before. And that's crucial, especially when we're considering diversity of talent to contribute to new ideas. And I think that's going to be magical between India and the UK, especially as language technology is developing so quickly. We can now have real-time translation taking place. And so people who are linguistically distant from projects are now able to also grapple with the product or the production that you're offering. India is so rich in a linguistic diversity that it makes sense that the English language is also able to translate to the dozens of languages that people speak in India. So I'm quite excited about the possibilities, the creative possibilities. Folk dance becomes accessible to me. The nuance of folk dance becomes more rich, and that will give me a greater impetus to get deep into the subject matter and feel more confident about accessing it.
Thanks, Anand. There's a question about esports, and I wonder around it being incredibly competitive space globally, and also Sally's talked a little bit about disruptive technology. Sally and Akshat, do you want to have a little bit of a response to the question around esports and its global expanding ecosystem? Akshat, do you want to kick off first? I apologise, and then we'll ask Sally to come in.
Perfect. And I hope that this is esports. There is some really interesting work being done at the University of York through the Digital Creative Labs. Esports is in a competitive space. Cool. Got it. With an expanding ecosystem, how do you differentiate between your product in the space, and does being an Indian-based company give an our view on this is most esports, and I think because you guys are from the UK, you'll get this analogy fairly quickly. I call esports test match cricket, one-day cricket, and T20. The original form of esports was pretty much test match cricket. Yeah, it was boring. It was very prim and proper. You had to be in a club, and that's how test match cricket is being played in whites in the right way that you needed to go out and do this, which was PC gaming, right? You have to have a mouse, you have to have a keyboard. They're really expensive. You have to have a really nice internet connection, really fast graphics card. And it used to cost you about $2,000 to go out and be in the business of being an athlete, to be an esports, pretty much like test match cricket, right? You have to be part of a club, a kid, and yada yada. And it was interesting, and it's still interesting, right? But it's predominantly a Europe play, where PC and a Korea play, where PC gaming is really strong. It's still the legit way to go out and do this. It's still the right way to go out and do this, but when you try to go ahead and take it to developing markets like India, it becomes really expensive because people don't have those kind of products and those kind of machines that are super expensive to go ahead and participate. And the differential that keeps on happening with someone who is having that kind of a product, say Sweden, France, the UK, etc., or China or South Korea, they keep on rising better because they're playing more of it, and then an Indian guy kind of lags behind. Then there comes one-day cricket. One-day cricket is predominantly like console gaming. Works really well. Once in a while, Fortnite will come in. Once in a while, FIFA will come in. Everyone will go ahead and play. It's an India-Pakistan match, or it's an Ashes it's an Ashes equivalent if it was being played on a one-day basis. People will watch it for a tournament. People will watch it for a specific game, but predominantly, this is the Japan and America play where people have consoles and it's really relevant, and it works around a certain game. That's why you'll see something like a Call of Duty League being predominantly an American phenomena, even the NBA 2K being an American phenomena. And then comes this 2020 thing that everyone wants to go out and play, and then you can just play this on this, right? It's your mobile phone. Everyone can go ahead and use this. But what happens is when you go ahead and play this, and it massifies, but it massifies in countries and locations where this is your primary device. It's not your second device, it's not your third device, it is your first device. And if this becomes your competitive device, this becomes your consumption device, and this becomes your media consumption device, and it becomes your interaction device, very quickly you start having an ecosystem that doesn't kind of work for the Western world and the developed world, which would be PC or console first, but works very well with developing markets. And that is our differentiator. We get this. We've been trained like a Michelin star restaurant, but we kind of have our food truck that runs on mobile. And that's the analogy I'd like to go ahead and say. And that's what differentiates us from taking it to the markets where we are expanding to.
Thank you. Sally, do you want to just respond to your comment about what's happening in York?
I chair something called the Digital Creativity Labs at York University. And one of the strands of that project is actually looking at esports. So I'm really interested in everything that you've said about it, because I think it's the most fascinating area. And I think what you've seen over the last 12 months of lockdown is that business models that would normally take us 2-3 years to come to the market have been absolutely accelerated over the last 12 months. And I think esports, everything that you said, I totally agree with. And it would be really great to look at whether there is some collaboration that we can do with DC Labs. Just in terms of disruptive technologies, I think that as well as immersive and interactive, virtual production is a really, really interesting area. And again, coming out of lockdown, one of the things that we've been looking at, and this is a bit of a double-edged sword, that in virtual production, you don't actually have to use a real life location. You can, with the technologies that are coming on stream now, you can completely recreate that location through technology. Now, that is fantastic. It's incredibly democratizing, but at the same time, it also has a knock-on effect for those big locations that are used traditionally for film and TV production. If you can recreate it with software, why do you need to be there? Now, so yeah, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, but I think virtual production is a massively important area. But as I say, I'm really interested in what you've said about esports. So thank you.
I'll just add to what Sally you said, on the whole virtual production. There are a lot of large physical studios in the world who had invested into large physical spaces are really trying to transform them into a digital studio of the future. You don't really need that kind of physical land investment and the whole traditional way of creating content. So I think it's a big space, and it also aligns with the aspirational value of youth of future, which is a complete mobile workforce. I don't want to be associated with one particular space to work in that area. I can be sitting in Ibiza and adding my value from there, everything on the cloud. So I think virtual production is going to be really big now.
Thank you very much, everyone. Nicky, are you just saying a few comments?
Yes, there's just a few comments in the chat, Kully, from James Mason. We'd love to host a big esports event here in Yorkshire. I saw after working in the USA for 18 months just how powerful this sport is as participation and spectator sport. It is now possible to receive full scholarship at top US universities to play and study esports. So that's something I think just to think about. And then another comment from Munjal. I think with the penetration of 4G, there are new opportunities for niche content and regional content. In fact, regional language content is a growing space. We have seen strong viewership for our show Krish, Trish and Naughty Boy, which is based on folk art, folk stories and folk music from all over India. So some really important holding thoughts there to take away.
Thank you very much. So we're now going to move on to some more presentations, and we're going to kick off with Shibasish Sarkar, who was Group CEO of Content, New Media and Gaming in the Reliance ADA Group. Welcome, Shibasish. Over to you.
Good afternoon to all of you, and I've been hearing quite engrossing discussion in terms of esports for last half an hour. To give a little background of what we are as a Reliance Entertainment, we are basically an Indian company which are primarily engaged into the business of content creation. And when I mean content creation, we virtually make contents from anything from a mobile screen to a large cinema screen. We have been producing films over a period of last probably 14-15 years. More than 350-400 films were produced in different languages, different Indian languages. Of course, through our joint venture company in DreamWorks or Ramblin, there are several Hollywood films also we have produced. We have a large animation studio. More than 1,500, 2,000 odd headcounts work in our animation studio. And if I look at last probably 3 years, we have been producing content for animation series and content for Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, Discovery Kids, all of the top 3, top 4 kids segment channels. We are supplying content with them. Most of them are our own IPs, intellectual IPs, and so we basically, the IPs which become popular in the films, we take it to the kids segment, create content around that, then subsequently take those IPs even to mobile games and etc. The third bit of content creation is basically we are actively engaged in creating content for the streaming platform. India's first Netflix show was produced by us, Sacred Games season 1, then we did season 2. As we speak now, we are probably making 1 show with Netflix, 2 show with Amazon, 2 show with Disney Plus, Sony Live. So I think the top 5-6 platforms we are producing content for. We also produce content for general entertainment channels or daily fictions or TV series, multiple regional languages in Punjabi, in Telugu, also in Hindi, etc. And last but not the least, we have a large decent mobile gaming presence, and we have a studio in Pune, we have a studio in San Francisco, and we create contents. We take intellectual IPs from across the globe and create games around that. So games like WWE, games on Real Steel, Into the Badland, drones, several games in that space. India and UK, I think from that background point of view, I think we have a lot of synergies and we have worked a lot with UK as a geography. I think, frankly speaking, while I've not mentioned it here, is that we used to own one of the largest console gaming company in UK called Codemaster between 2010 to 2018. They used to make the best of the racing games there. The company, finally we listed the company in 2018 and exited after that, which currently I think a few months back has been completely acquired by EA. So yes, so from a culturally or from other business and economic synergies point of view, I think the two countries link a lot to each other. Even in terms of creation of content for films, we probably, I think in last 24 months, if I'm not wrong, at least 7 to 8 films we have shot in UK, which are shot in UK means which are basically UK stories at the end of the day. Interestingly, last week we launched our one of the films straight to Netflix, The Girl on the Train, and it is, I think, across completely shot in UK. The story was set in UK, and we took the original rights of Paula Hawkins and original rights from DreamWorks being a sister company, and adapted it to an Indian story. The story is set in UK, and as I was looking at the chart today, it was ranking third in across all the countries where Netflix was present. So I think from a point of synergy and opportunities point of view, we have been Reliance and Indian companies or studios have been working for quite some time between both the geographies. We're seeing a lot of work. Areas where probably I would like to see more synergies coming out is probably animation. What all we can create in animation, whether at a story level, whether at an art level, how the companies or how the institutions from both sides can synergize. We have a decent appetite and a decent present in that space. Similarly, mobile gaming can be an area of interest. I was quite engrossed when Mr. Kalra was explaining the space of the esports and the subsequent communications on that. So yeah, that broadly is our scenario as an entity. As Reliance Entertainment, we have been working in different geographies, but probably with UK there are a lot of work which has happened in the past. But areas of interest in future, probably we have done a lot of work on film, but not so much of work in terms of either animation or content creation for the streaming platforms and etc. So those are the areas probably which I will be keen to see that how we can explore, how some synergies can be worked out, and not only necessarily at a commercial economic point of view, but also at a creative point of view, from a writing to storytelling. Is somewhere in some stages there are a lot of commonality and lot of synergies which we need to pursue and which we need to explore.
Thank you, Shibasish. There's clearly lots and lots of opportunity for a conversation and connection. I'm really conscious of time and that we've still got some brilliant speakers. We're going to move forward and ask James Mason, Chief Executive of Welcome to Yorkshire, to say a few words.
Yeah, thank you, Kully. It's a pleasure to be here this morning and this afternoon across two distinct parts of the world, but many collaborations. And it's lovely to see so many friendly faces that I know, and hopefully many new people and partnerships that we can build. So where am I today? Quite interesting that we're on this conference this morning about digital technology, creative industries, and I'm actually in my home office. Well, actually my office at work, but you wouldn't think it because behind me are the beautiful North York moors in our part of England. Yorkshire, can I ask you to put your hand up? Have you all heard of Yorkshire to start with? And that's not meant to insult anybody, it's just a question. Okay, mixture, that's good, because that means I've got 50% of people that I can preach to the converted and 50% of people that I can convince to come on holiday in the next few years to our beautiful county. So that's a good place to start, isn't it? And actually, the virtual background at this moment in time is the only way that we've been able to promote our county over the last 12 months, as we've all been suffering through the pandemic. But this is one of 52 different backdrops As I say, Yorkshire is famous for its countryside, its national parks, its coastline, but also its vibrant cities. Its forward-thinking approach, despite being quite traditional in Yorkshire, which I'm sure is very similar to parts of India, we're also thinking ahead. We're also looking at the future and making sure that we always respect our heritage and our history and culture, but we also look forward. And I'm delighted to say that a modern Yorkshire is a very diverse place to live, a very diverse set of opinions, which again makes us quite unique. I think the people in Yorkshire are the things that separate us. And therefore, speaking to you this morning about film, about creative technologies, about esports, is really where Welcome to Yorkshire needs to be over the next few years. I mentioned the backdrop because I could change this to be a vibrant city like Leeds or Hull or Bradford or Sheffield. We have some major cities in Northern Europe, but we've also got some institutions that are world class. The Northern School of Contemporary Dance just down the road from myself, and Kully leading on Leeds 2023 as a city of real cultural change and creative change as well. So I suppose my message to you in only my 3 or 4 minutes left is to look at the way that we can use this platform now to build bridges, to share good practice, to open up lines of communication. So my job principally is not different to everybody else on this call. We're all in some way promoting and selling in the right way. I've nothing to sell this morning. No one else has. We're selling our thoughts, our opportunity to work together. But actually, Yorkshire is a destination to actually visit first and foremost, but live, work and study. And that's really important when I say live, work and study, because we do have many international students that come from all over the world. India, Pakistan, China, Malaysia, South America, North America, the Middle East. And every student that chooses Yorkshire as a place to come and study is potentially someone that can then live and work in the area. And by doing that, and I think it was, I'm looking on my screen now, it may have gone off the screen. It was someone earlier on that used their mobile phone to say that actually it starts and ends with mobile phones, doesn't it? And I hate to say that, but it's the truth. My son is 10. Is a 10-year-old too young to have a mobile phone? We've all been children on this call. We all wanted something that we couldn't have. I remember at school, I wanted a pinball machine. And we used to have a catalogue where we used to look at it every year. And I said, Mummy, Daddy, can I have that? And I couldn't have it. But eventually I got it and I was so pleased. But I had to behave. I had to save up my own money and eventually I could choose it. My little boy at 10 wants a mobile phone. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of him not having a mobile phone? The disadvantage is that he's not keeping up with his friends and his peers. It's a disadvantage because we live in a world of technology whereby mobile phones are actually used as a safety measure now. I know where he is. He knows where I am and his mother. He can message his friends, because of GPS. We can find him if he goes wandering too far. But also it's a communication tool. He can learn about the good and the bad things that out there that exist. So myself and my wife have decided that whilst a few of his peers have got a phone, I think 11 is about the right age for him to get his mobile phone when he goes to what we call big school. And big school is secondary school here in Yorkshire. And quite a daunting proposition for him. But the point is, my 11-year-old, my 10-year-old now probably knows technology way better than I do. And I would say that I'm very well versed in using creative technologies, but it's his go-to mechanism. And I think a couple of other people mentioned it, certainly Sally. During lockdown, we've all used technology more than we ever have had to or needed to in the past. We've also actually experienced the outdoor world more than we have. So I'm not in the camp of, lockdown is sending us all virtual or sending us all onto technology, because actually I think I have a healthy understanding of both. We switch our phones off now and go out for an hour because we know that later on in the day we're probably going to be on it for hours and hours. So my point about my boy is that he can connect with the whole world via technology. We are all speaking today in the afternoon in India, but it's 10:20 in Yorkshire here in the UK, and it's working. All of my staff at the moment are working from home. It's been a huge challenge, but we've seen some real creativity come from working from home. Yes, we have more dwell time, and actually every now and then you can get caught in Zoom or Teams traffic when you're 5 minutes late for your call because it's run over. So unfortunately, we still need some better discipline with our meetings, don't we? But I suppose to finish with Kully and for the rest of the panel, I think what today demonstrates is a willingness to collaborate, share good practice, and clearly there's so much that we can learn from each other. But the most important thing is that the world really is accessible to us all, isn't it? It really is accessible. It used to be something that we'd look at in atlases, or hopefully the BBC World Service would take us on a journey into parts of the world that we wouldn't see anymore. Now we can pick our phones up, we can join a Zoom call, we can watch the world. And in terms of the arts and culture sector, which has been the biggest one, I would say, has been hit over the last year in Yorkshire, we're looking at new ways to deliver this to school children, to individuals, to people. You know, we're looking at street art and street performance, you know, so we can't be indoors, but actually virtual performances and listening and watching more may be the future for now. But nothing will ever beat seeing this in person. But for now, we're going to have to adapt and work with it. And the final sentence of this is, if you like what you see behind you, you can download these backdrops for free. So you too can be in Yorkshire as well. One for 52 weeks of the year. I'll send you the link in the chat box so you can download them for free. It would be our gift to you this morning. And all I would ask is, over the next 2 months, maybe put a virtual background from Yorkshire on it and just tell them the story as to where you got it. By doing that, you'll keep me in my job and hopefully I'll get a pay rise as well. Thank you very much, Kully.
Thanks very much, James, and great to celebrate Yorkshire in that way. I'm going to move swiftly on. Lots still to hear, and I'm delighted to welcome Bobby Bedi, acclaimed film producer from India. So, Bobby, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Been listening to all of you with a very diverse set of thoughts. I'm going to talk about really two things in the few minutes that I have. One is that definitely the virus has actually opened opportunities in exchange of entertainment and culture as against closing them. I mean, this kind of a meeting would never have been thought of last year. You know, you would be trying to get people's planes organized and programs organized, and people would be dropping out and all that kind of stuff would happen, and there's be a third of us there. Today, we can all be there and discuss anything at an international level without wasting any superfluous time. And I think that's a great opportunity. But it's also seriously increasing the exchange of culture. I mean, the amount that we have been able to see of international content in the last year is probably more than 10 years put together before that. And I'm sure that's true of a lot of people in that. But coming sort of specifically to trying to work with the world in general, and with England in particular, I mean, we've been doing it for a while, and I think that suddenly there is a great interaction that wasn't there earlier. At this point of time, we have Shekhar Kapoor, who did Bandit Queen for me, directing a film, What's Love Got to Do with It, in London, with a partly Indian and British cast. You know, Shabana Azmi, Emma Thompson, that's the kind of lineup he has. It's happening. I myself have been very involved in developing a series which actually, through a heist, tells the story of the Kohinoor diamond. You know, the Kohinoor diamond was something that the Indians claim belongs to them, the Pakistanis claim belong to them, the Afghans say it's theirs, the British, of course, believe that they own it. So, and there are other countries within India, there are about 5 different people who own it. So, through a fictional story, we're actually telling you the entire history of what was then the largest stone in the world, and still probably the most famous and notorious stone in the world on that. And again, the story is entirely British and Southeast Asian. So I mean, there are great amount of opportunities that are emerging, I think, and stories that are emerging because the ability to watch has increased. Even though cinemas are shut, the ability to watch content has significantly increased in the last year. And I don't think it's a habit that we're going to drop that easily. I think it's a habit we've picked up, and to a large extent, we'll stay with it. 2, we've managed to see in the course of the last 3 or 4 years stories in different languages, and that's been fantastic. I mean, today I get irritated with a dubbed version of anything. I can watch Mexican, Japanese, German, Israeli without even realizing that I've switched languages, and I don't understand any of those languages. Yet I think it's fantastic, and that sort of stigma attached to dubbing and subtitling is completely gone now. And I think that will play a big role in India, especially because we have so many languages. I mean, we don't actually watch content in most of the languages in our own country. This has opened up great opportunities. So really, I think I look upon the last year as a complete boom year for my business, at least, which is content creation. And even though I've been pretty much sitting in my study and dealing with it, we've been shooting a series in Maharashtra where there's COVID. We've been developing a series in London, and it's all happening at least just in a t-shirt and pajamas. So I think in that sense, it's a great chance. So I mean, that's really it. I think we should explore more of these common stories. We should try to tell each other more about our entertainment and culture. And with this, there's a lot of understanding of what's happening, and we're able to communicate a lot better. So that's really it from me. I mean, I'd like to hear what other people feel about this. And I'm not going into the tech space. There's been a lot talked about the tech space, but I'm just purely talking about being able to tell each other our stories much more easily.
Thank you, Bobby. And it's really been a signal of this lockdown that we've turned to storytelling and music, culture in its broadest sense, as our way of coping and feeling connected with the world. So I think your points are very, very well made. So moving on to Vikas Kumar, MBE Director of Gem Arts. I know you do a lot of work in communities up in the Northeast. Vikas, over to you, please.
Thanks, Kully, and thanks for inviting me. It's been great to hear all the fantastic speakers and presentations today. I hope everyone can understand my Geordie accent, so I will speak a bit slower because I'm from this part of the world here. My Geordie Punjabi accent, actually. So here we go. So, Director of Gem Art, and I'm founder of Gem Art. Gem Art is an award-winning art organisation based in Gateshead in the northeast of England. We're a recognised leader in the South Asian and diversity arts sector. We're a national portfolio organisation funded by Arts Council England, and we create and programme high-quality concerts, events, festivals, workshops and commissions with regional, national and international artists across a whole range of art forms. Gem Arts has established an international programme of work over the last 20 years, working with classical, folk and contemporary artists and musicians from India and beyond, across 5 key strands of our artistic programme. So firstly, our performance programme. We have a long-standing partnership with Sage Gateshead, which is a world-class venue here in Gateshead at the banks of the River Tyne. And we have programmed world-renowned musicians from Hindustani and Carnatic traditions, including Hari Prasad Chaursiaji, Shiv Kumar Sharma, Amjad Ali Khan, Kala Ramnath, Sanjay Subramaniam and Anushka Shankar, plus many more, including supergroup Remember Shakti with the legendary tabla maestro Zakir Husainji and guitarist John McLaughlin, who's actually from this part of the world as well, not too far from here. Gem Art Riverside Raga concert series has given a platform for the next generation of rising international and UK talent. The performances are complemented with pre-concert talks and demonstrations to broaden audiences' understanding, appreciation and enjoyment of Rag-based music. And we continue to promote international work across a whole range of other genres, including jazz, electronic, folk music, and also dance, including Bharatanatyam, Kathak, Kuchipudi, and all sorts of other classical art forms as well, within the region and with national partners and venues. Anand here is Dance City as well, so we're having some great conversations with him currently in terms of developing more programmes as we go forward post-lockdown. We also deliver a festival each year in July, our award-winning Masala Festival, which is a critical mass of everything we do throughout the year in 1 week across places, spaces and venues across the Northeast. Each year, as part of the festival, our core programme, we present an international programme of South Asian short films at the Baltic Centre for Contemporary Art. And with Newcastle University, we bring award-winning poets from India and the diaspora. We also have a commitment to accessibility and offer a wide range of free events for communities here in the region. Last year we had the Rajasthani folk musicians, dancers and circus troupe Circus Raj, and the year previous to that, the incredible 30-strong Gandharva choir from New Delhi performed on the concourse at the Sage Gate to rapturous applause and fantastic audience response as well. The second part of our strand of work as well is commissioning, which is really important. So we commission 2 to 3 new pieces of work each year. In 2019, we launched Gem Art Masala Festival with a stunning collaboration between Sarod Maestro Wajat Khan and Royal Northern Symphonia. Our recent collaboration with Durham University, Khayal Music and Imagination, brought together an international team of musicians and visual artists from India and locally to explore and create new visual artworks responding to Khayal performances and recordings. We engaged artists and ethnomusicologists with local schools in Gateshead, where young people created their own creative responses to the music, which were exhibited alongside the professional work. And the exhibition has went on to tour extensively across the UK and India. As part of the project, we also created the very first Khayal app, so people could get an introduction to Khayal music using technology. Artist development is the third strand, which runs throughout all our work. We have a specific focus in this context in terms of international work, as well as delivering masterclasses with visiting artists. We encourage them to pair up with our amazing UK talent here. Especially, we've got some exceptional tabla players within the UK as well, and that ultimately increases their profile as well internationally as those musicians go back home to India and talk about the fantastic talent here. So that opens up avenues for those musicians here in the UK, which is really important to us as well. Learning, participation, and engagement are at the heart of our work. And we believe it is hugely important to connect international work with communities and young people here in the Northeast and the UK. We have program leading Kathakali dance companies from Kerala and the monks of Majuli from the beautiful island of Assam, who have delivered rare and unique dance and cultural experiences in schools and communities here in the Northeast. And also creates a better understanding and more cohesive communities here as well. You know, it creates and also confidence within young people from South Asian diasporas, but also wider as well. So culture is a massive thing in terms of bringing communities together, as we all know. So that's just a snapshot of Gem Art's international work with India, which we're absolutely committed to developing and strengthening in the long term. As an organisation, we're keen to build our knowledge and understanding of how we can develop new opportunities for exceptional UK talent to collaborate and present work in India, and to continue to bring from India the very best emerging and established musicians and artists to present work here in the Northeast and in the UK. Thank you.
Thank you, Vikas. Again, really interesting to just hear about the diversity of the work in amongst communities. We'll jump ahead to Wendy Gallagher, who's Head of Civic Education and Engagement at Manchester Museum.
Yes, so I'm Head of Learning and Engagement at Manchester Museum, which is actually part of the University of Manchester, for those of you who might not have known that. This museum is quite unusual because it has an encyclopedic collection. We have over 4.5 million objects. Many of those are insects, but at the moment we're going through a really exciting period in our development. So we are going through a capital development, £40 million one, which will actually see a new South Asia gallery, a new Chinese culture gallery, new exhibition hall, new entrance and other new facilities. I think probably the star of all of that is most definitely the South Asia Gallery. It will be the first permanent exhibition of South Asian gallery culture outside of London. It's a partnership with the British Museum, and we're approaching the development of the content for the exhibition in a very different manner than what is normally done. So the traditional approach has been to start with objects, to tell a story chronologically, and what we've decided is the right thing to do is to actually tell the stories of people's lived experience. So rather than your white middle-class male curator actually telling this story, over the last couple of years, we've really worked hard at developing relationships with our local communities. So in Manchester, I think the demographic for people coming from a South Asian heritage is around 16%. So we, first of all, hosted a really big afternoon and a meal at the Million, which is a local South Asian fusion food restaurant, beautiful. And we had over 100 people attend. And we basically gathered together now a core group of 40 people from South Asian diaspora who are different backgrounds. We have scientists, artists, young people, community members, mathematicians. It's a real range of people who are really interested and have a story to tell. So we've started with the stories of those with lived experience, and that will create a series of anthologies throughout the gallery. We won't be able to tell everybody's story or all the stories that, you know, South Asia has to tell. And what we do hope to do is through extending our programming, we will be able to tell other stories as well. So at the centre of the South Asia Gallery is a performance space. And I'm happy just to share with you as well that as of this week, we've just appointed a creative programmer through a fellowship, through the Western Jerwood Fellowship, who will work with myself and my teams to hopefully create a really exciting programme for when we reopen, which isn't until August 22, but we're hoping to do some really sneak previews, particularly of the South Asia Gallery, prior to that main opening in October, because I'm aware that it's a year of, you know, really important anniversaries and celebrations for those from South Asia. So we're always looking for more people that may be interested, that want to participate, contribute, and that can be in lots of different ways, whether that's through programming, through linking us up to other creative people that may want to have a story to tell themselves. Please do get in touch. We've already been working with international partners in India. We have a relationship and a partnership with the Partition Museum. Not last year, the year before, we co-collaborated digitally, actually, to create a fantastic exhibition. And it's one of those that was those untold stories. So it's about the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. It was really well received. It was an exhibition that spoke to the communities in Manchester, and it certainly has changed our visitor demographic as we continue to strive to reflect the interests and the issues of the communities that we serve. But we're also looking at different ways in how we diversify our workforce too. So I think I'll hold it there. But I would invite anybody to please do contact me if you're wanting to find out more ways of how to get involved. Thank you.
Lovely, Wendy. Thank you very much. There's lots of great chat and comments around all of the various subjects and themes that are driving forward, especially around storytelling and kind of linguistic relationships that have been made so strong for us in this recent period, but also the power of the diaspora in the UK and its relationship to the connectivity between the two nations. I'm going to now move on to ask Manavendra Shukla, CEO of Lakshya Digital, to speak.
Hello, everybody. Good morning, good evening, depending on which part of the world you are in. I've been hearing to a lot of the speakers and presentations, and pretty enamored with the variety of creativity that we have on this panel. And what we do at Lakshya is maybe a little different from what a lot of my friends here are talking about, which is, so we're not into creating content. We are more into helping the teams create that content, which is the services side of the business. So what we do at Lakshya is purely creative, which is art and animation and visual effects for the video games. And so we don't make our own content. We've been around for 16 years, almost 17 years now, and with a team of 700 plus people. Our primary focus has been on working with global developers and publishers and creating art and animation and visual effects for them. So while I was looking at the topic for today's discussion, which was creativity and culture. So that's something which we found that we work with Japan, which is a big market for us. We work with Europe, we work with US, globally in the entire global gaming industry, we work with more or less in all geographies. So what we realized is that because we are a services company, at any given time, we are working with at least 35, 40, maybe 50 different projects across different parts of the world, different cultures, different mindsets, different sensibilities. So and being in India is primarily much better known for services than in other things that we are talking about. So it's basically a country which has the mindset of services. So when you have a mindset of services, especially in the creative space, and you are working with so many different partners globally, you automatically have this sense of understanding, or at least wanting to understand different cultures, wanting to understand the mindsets of different geographies. And that's something which at Lakshya, I think we have in the past 16 years done pretty effectively, that we have tried to understand the nuances of the cultures that we work with, nuances of the mindsets we work with. And culturally, I think that has been a big learning for us across so many years, that we are not ready, we should not necessarily be just looking upon one way of doing things, looking at things or understanding things. It opens so many new doors. So it opens up so many different options when you start understanding different cultures from a creative perspective. I'm sure all of you know that working in Japan is almost next to impossible for somebody who doesn't know that culture, who's not part of that culture, because the cultural nuances of Japan are way different from any other geography that at least we have worked with. They have a very specific mindset, and if you don't understand their culture, you cannot deliver creatively what they expect from you. But then we have been working with them for 12 years, 14 years now, and we've realized that it takes an effort, but if you want to do it, you can understand culturally what the expectations are. And that, I think, is something which is very important from a creative perspective, that creatively we have to let go of our unilateral way of, or I would say a linear way of thinking. Creatively, we have to open to different ideas. Creatively, we have to be open to different ways of thinking so that we can interpret things based on what others are looking at. And being in a services industry, I think that's one of the biggest advantages that we have built over the years. That we have tried to understand what is it that culture is all about. We've tried to understand what is it that cultural mindset is all about. So we have been able to deliver across so many different, I would say, mindsets, because every geography, every culture, every region has its own ways of looking at the same thing. And once you understand that, then you're no longer limited to just one way of being. You actually are saying that, okay, I can interpret this in many ways. There's no just one definition of any story that we tell. In a way, when we are doing art and animation, we may not necessarily be doing the whole game. We're just doing art, animation, VFX. But we are still a very important component of telling a story, because visually, the visual content which gets created is a big part and parcel of the stories that one tells. And once we learn to adapt ourselves to these unique and different ways of thinking, then what we are doing is we are actually becoming adept at creating stories in a different way. So Lakshya is, I think, we have studios in 3 studios in India: Gurgaon, Pune, and Bangalore. We have teams in UK. We have a team in London also, and we have a team in Tokyo in Japan, and we have a studio in Seattle in US. So across all these thoughts that we have from which come to us from across the continents, across countries, I think it's important, if you're in a creative industry, to try and understand what each of the cultures and nuances mean. Because then, at least to my mind, today we are, I think, much better storytellers than what we were 15 years, 16 years back. Because now we have understood what storytelling nuances are. We have understood what storytelling is all about from different ways of different ways of looking at things. I think that is something which, at least being in India, I feel quite proud that we have actually reached out to understand things rather than just stay in one place and say, okay, this is all we can think of, this is what we can do and what we can work with you for or partner with you for. So that, I think, being in India, I'm pretty happy that we have that mindset to adapt. That, to my mind, as an Indian, Indians have one of the biggest abilities to adapt to new environments, adapt to new ways of working, and that is actually making us stronger from a creative perspective, because we are always constantly adapting. We are trying to I wouldn't say reinvent, but recreate the same story, not the same story, but the same ways of thinking and depicting things in a new way, in a different way, to make it meaningful for whatever the audience is. That, to my mind, I think is one of the biggest assets that we have, our ability to adapt. And I think that's something that we at Lakshya also have been doing for so many years, and I think we have done a pretty good job of. If you look at the top 20 games or something, at least top 10 or 12 we would have worked on globally, which says a lot about we have adapted. We have adapted to a level where the global expectations are right there, and we have adapted and delivered at that level, which says a lot about, I would say, not Lakshya, but adaptive abilities of Indian creative people, because it's a team of artists who are adapting to that. It's not just one individual or one group of people. It's all of 700 people, 700 artists who are adapting to different things all the time, every day. So that, I think, is in a nutshell what my experiences have been in this creative industry, and how I think knowing different cultures and learning from them has really helped us grow as an organization and as a creative team.
Manvendra, that was really insightful. Thank you very much. One of the things that's really interesting, especially for, reflecting back on my own history, given that I was born in India but grew up here in the UK, is that in some respects, stories are extraordinarily universal, but they are also the mechanism by which we learn to understand the world and see the world through different lenses. And as a theatre maker, I always think of it as, the kind of world of live performance, and certainly theatre is allowing us to step into someone else's shoes for a moment. It's kind of like a dress rehearsal for life. It's almost like testing out what might or might not be possible in other worlds, in other experiences. So one of the extraordinary things that's coming through all of the things that people are saying is the power of story, the power of our ability to be storytellers and to make connections and really speak universality of what it means to be human, really. So that's a very powerful baseline for partnership working and making connections, I'm sure. There's a number of questions. Nicky, to just frame those, and maybe we can then open it up for a bit more of a discussion over the next 10-15 minutes. Nicky, over to you.
Thank you, Kully. So there is a question and then there was some really great discussion. So maybe if we start with the question. And the question is, how does linguistic variation affect the storytelling element of the creative process? What is unique to the Indian way of storytelling?
Yeah. So I think India is obviously a land of different languages, and I think in a way what is interesting is that even the national language Hindi, the way it's spoken, is spoken with a different accent across the different regions of India. But I think the overall storytelling ethos still remains the same, and we now see a lot of the content which has possibly worked, and for example, for a Tamil movie, tends to be remade eventually in different other stories, because I think people do connect to the same stories at times, And on the other side, I think through some of our own work on our animated movie series, Krish Krish and Balti Boy, we've seen some wonderful literature, particularly children's literature, which is there in regional languages. And now what we're trying to do is to see how we can bridge it and, share it with kids across India, and across the world as well, And I think what we find is that it really doesn't matter what language the story comes from, so long as it resonates. And I think, and its themes, in fact, what we found is that that some of the folk literature is actually surprisingly universal themes that are there. And I think that's really struck us. You would tend to find, or you would expect that because the story is coming from a region, it would be too culturally biased, but actually it's exactly the opposite. And we've seen that from our own experience of over 40 million kids watching these movies on Cartoon Network and now on Netflix. we find that they travel really, really well, So I think that's my take on that.
Thank you. Bobby, do you have any response to that question about linguistic variations and the power of different languages?
So, it goes a little beyond that also, because India's got a lot of, commonality with the rest of the world. For example, if you see anything, if you see an Israeli program about displacement, and displacement has been a big issue for the last 2 generations in India. The minute it is about food, the minute it's about democracy, I mean, these things just resonate so well over here that you don't even bother about the language. And then, of course, the thrill factor works in any case, but that works across the world. But, even if there are things like food, marriage, displacement, these things, and obviously music is something that is just far too integral to our life. And I'm seeing more and more music emerging in the Western context also. So yeah, it transcends, and that's the main thing. And this period has helped us discover that easily.
Thank you, Bobby. Sally, you talked a little bit in the chat about the sort of power of subtitles and being able to access, particularly through the streaming platforms. We've got used to listening and watching films that are not in our mother tongue, so to speak. What do you want to say? Anything relating to that?
Thank you. I mean, I put in the chat, a good story is a great story. Wherever you are, there are common themes, and no matter where that story originates from, you get it right, and it will connect with audiences across the globe. And I think what has been really important in all this is, we've moved from a position where it would be unthinkable for many people to look at a film or a TV program that was subtitled. Now you have Saturday night TV showing on the main terrestrial broadcasters, showing content with subtitles. So audience appetites, audience norms have changed enormously. Dubbing has come on a million miles from those really painful dubbed films of the past, where you spent more time actually looking at how badly they were dubbed than actually listening to the story. So I think real improvements in subtitling, in dubbing, have made a massive difference. But I think, again, the rise of the streamers, there is such an appetite now for international productions, for productions which give you a window onto other cultures, other countries, different people. At the heart of this is authentic storytelling. That's what makes it work. Now, what you have 2 ends of the spectrum. At the one end, you have very niche content that is aimed at a niche audience, which is very much around cultural language, and that has a really, really powerful position. But then at the other end of that spectrum, you have that big international audience for your work. And I think those two actually work together really, really well. But at the heart of it, a great story is still a great story. And you look at something like Parasite, which was just an extraordinary success. 10 years ago, the idea of watching that kind of film on mainstream streaming channels would have been unheard of. So my argument absolutely is a great story is a great story, irrespective of boundaries, languages, cultures. Within that, there is still a place for regionally specific and linguistically specific content, but the joy, the absolute joy, and the ambition has to be sharing of that international content that comes out of really authentic and different voices and communities. That for me is the kind of holy grail.
Great, thank you. Vikas, is there anything from the live sort of performing arts side of it that you want to reflect on in terms of this question?
I guess more broadly, I think in terms of, look, we've talked about digital and how that's a leveler as well, but equally, I think that, part of what we do as an organisation and what the cultural sector do is sort of bring people together to share cultural experiences in a live space. And I think that ultimately that's what we're really looking forward to doing and coming back to that. I think also what COVID has also shown, and also being a publicly funded organisation and ensuring that we meet the needs of our beneficiaries, especially those that are least engaged with the arts and culture. You know, we constantly want to develop new audiences and ensure that those people who aren't getting access to high quality cultural experiences are able to do that. But at this time during the pandemic, it's also shown, you know, digital exclusion's a major thing as well, you know, for those communities that can't afford digital devices, don't have digital connections, you know. So I think as organisations and the sector working here and in India, maybe we find more equitable ways of how we can also give access to those communities that have least access to amazing work that we all do. I think that's something that should be really be paramount as well in our heads. So that's kind of, I don't know, that's what encompasses linguistics and all sorts of agendas and issues and challenges that we have. But it's really important that that's at our forefront as well as part of, you know, the work that we're all doing. Excellent work. So, yeah.
Thanks, Vikas. I'm just going to ask Nicky to reflect on some of the comments or pull out some of the key themes that might be in our chat.
There was much discussion about the existing co-production treaty between UK and India, which was signed in 2005. And it's clear there's strong collaboration already and a treaty in place. But Munjal makes the point it needs to be expanded to cover TV, OTT, animation and gaming. And Sally just makes the point the treaty is one thing, but actually having events like this where we can meet each other and talk to each other is extremely important. It's the sharing of ideas as well as a sharing of a contract. And then an interesting comment from Anand, Bhatt, this may not be the right space, but is it appropriate to ask about ethical screen time? We know that generally higher the screen time has adverse mental health effects and sedentary lifestyle. Particularly with young people, the effects are profound. Digital growth is important, but it needs to be managed in a way which does not impact health. India and UK's partnership will grow digitally, of course, especially if it means fewer flights. So that's a really good point. And I have to say that after a year of lockdown, eating banana bread and watching Netflix, I identify with that. So I think it's having that balance, isn't it, of having access to content, but ensuring that we're not encouraging bad habits to form. Just running through some others here, Kully. I think that, yeah, there was lots of conversation again about storytelling, subtitles, dubbing. Can perhaps some cultural variations get lost in translation, and particularly in the Indian context, having some specific language and cultural storytelling is important. So whilst a more international audience will find maybe that will get lost in translation, it's really important that that's actually retained in an Indian context, which was a really good point. And there's lots of people at the end of here looking for engagement, which is fantastic. And then an offer from Divya from the Department for International Trade, British High Commission, Delhi, covers the creative and sports sector, facilitating UK and India collaborations in these sectors, actively working on the areas being discussed today, esports, film, TV, gaming. So please feel free to get in touch to understand how that work's being developed. And then really a call out for Mick. Obviously, we have Bradford 2025 on the horizon, and really, really looking forward to working with the great collaboration of people on the call here today. So all in all, very positive. And I think we covered most of the points there, Kully, unless I've missed anything.
That's great, Nicky. Thank you very much. I mean, it's certainly from where I'm sitting, it's been a very rich and insightful couple of hours. And I get the feeling that we could really spend the whole day talking, if not a whole week, talking about creativity and culture and the different ways that we can build strong partnerships between the North and India. But I suspect we'll find next steps will be part of working out how we build on this conversation. But just extend a huge thank you to all of the contributors, you know, and the brilliance of the work that you do, and the insightful comments that you've made. And thanks to Sharon and the team and the partners who've made this virtual mission possible. And I very much look forward to hopefully seeing you face to face sometime and having a informal chats as well as continuing these collaborations and conversations. On that note, unless Sharon, you want to say anything more, or Nicky wants to say anything more, I will say farewell. Sharon?
I think just say farewell, but absolutely outstanding. Thoroughly enjoyed. Don't know where the 2 hours have gone. Thank you, Paramji, so much. Thank you, Kully. Thank you, Nicky. Thank you, Faria. And the speakers, absolutely outstanding. So thank you very much, everybody.
On that note, we'll say goodbye and look forward to continuing conversations in other ways. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.